are here back in the studio and in Foco, and the Bronx Council on the Arts has joined forces to present subject does not equal to object, and an exhibition featuring 10 of Enfoco's photography fellows. And the exhibition focuses on many contemporary societal issues such as race, identity, sexuality, urbanization, ecology, feminism, and politics. And joining us to share more are Enfoco fellow artists Virginia Inés Vergara and curator Alexander Campos. Welcome.
Thank you.
I know that was like really interesting, right? I had to take a bite of this croissant. So
Sure.
thank you
I'm
for
jealous.
I'm so
I know,
sorry.
me
I'm so
too.
sorry. We could share it later. In the meantime, welcome and thank you for the
you.
wonderful work you're doing with Enfoco.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Alexander. Let's talk about your guest curation
Right.
and your participation with Enfoco.
Well, first I want to give a little history about Enfoco. Enfoco is a wonderful organization that's been around in the Bronx for around 30 years, or even probably longer. And it was started by a group of artists who were committed to presenting and finding a niche or place to present photography by artists of African, Asian, and Latin American ancestry. So it was really an important institution back in 30 years ago when artists of color had very little representation in the mainstream arts world. So Enfoco started off with doing exhibitions as well as this magazine called Nueva Luz. And Nueva Luz is a journal that comes out, I believe, twice a year. Sometimes it's be out 3 times a year. And it features the work of artists, of photographers of color. And there's essays, and it's really important. So within that presentation of the magazine, it's the mini exhibition. So it's like an exhibition on paper. And with that, they had exhibitions off-site and through the places throughout different parts of the city. So it's really important. And of course, Bronx Council on the Arts runs the Longwood Gallery at Hostos, and they collaborated to do the presentation at Hostos. And it's been a wonderful experience. The artists that were selected for the exhibition were artists, Enfoco gives out scholarships or fellowships to artists every year. It's a grant they receive so they could continue working. And with that grant, they get to be part of this exhibition as well as in the journal Nueva Luz. So they get multiple levels of exposure.
That's wonderful. I think it's important that we also honor every aspect of artistry, right? Because photography is pretty much our timekeeper, right? And so let's talk a little bit about your work, Virginia. Like, how do you decide what you're going to capture?
I think it takes me a really long time for projects to develop. So one of the projects I have on display evolved over 9 years. And during those 9 years, it became almost like an archive and a record. I was photographing natural history dioramas with a camera I constructed myself. And during that time period, natural history dioramas started to become obsolete. And what I wanted to do to manipulate the photos and to give them more meaning, to have the viewer get more out of them, was to remove the animals from those images. So what you're looking at is a landscape, but there's a strong sense of absence. So that came to me in a way because I had made this camera and I was trying to think what would be a good subject matter and what fit with that. And that kind of seemed like the perfect pairing in a way because it gives a really antique look to the images, which I find similar to the actual dioramas.
So how long have you been photographing?
I think I got my first camera when I was 11, or probably earlier. Those, that you would just buy in the drugstore, and you then develop the film. So as soon as I could really press a button and afford, and then I think my dad got me a little point and shoot for my birthday when I was 12 or 13.
Wow.
So.
And so you've just developed and enhanced your style of photography along with the equipment.
Yeah, I think it's been a continual exploration and about what photo can be. So actually in university, I was trained as a painter, but I loved photo so much. And so I wanted to find a way to use photography in a painterly manner. So to really construct different scenarios and not really look for a decisive moment where you point and shoot, but have this really long time of building a kind of set.
Wonderful. And just Alexander, because you're the curator, how do you determine what the style of photography becoming equivalent to the title of the exhibition, which is subject does not equal object?
Right. Well, that's since there are 10 different photographers and each with a different style and focusing on different issues, it's not thematically based. So how do I bring together 10 artists' work that has a conversation? So the more and more I looked at the work, the more I discussed with the artists, I realized that really it's not the actual images that's really important in the work. Not to say it's not important, but it's not the actual sitter or place that's being photographed that's important, but really the overall body of work as a whole. And it's really about the content or the issues that they're trying to express through the photography they're taking. So, for example, Virginia falls into my urban decay or urban development or ecology issues because she's looking at landscape. She actually makes these wonderful photographs that look like landscape. They're landscapes, but they're actually built. She has one series where she actually does collages, photographs, and then rescans and recollages and rephotographs. And so it builds up this layer, and it looks like the icebergs are melting, the world's coming to an end, it's all decaying, and it's about the time lapse of nature. So there's another artist named Melanie Gonzalez who also has work in the show, and she's taking photographs of cityscapes and urbanscapes and landscapes, combining them and also creating inside of a collage series with her photographs that looks at the decay of urban settings. And there's a third artist who's looking at a Japanese city that is actually decaying. It's a little town that has this wonderful soil that makes this particular non-lustrous pottery and ceramics. And people are dying out, people who make it are dying out, and the land's dying out, that soil is particularly running out. People are abandoning the city, so it's about this whole decay of a business and industry that's culturally significant to Japan, that's kind of evolvingly becoming extinct in a way. So that was one group, and then of course there was identity issues. We have a wonderful artist named Ruben Ramirez who has a series of photographs about Reese Beach and the transgender environment, and it's really about creating a safe place and identity. We have another two artists, Tiffany Smith and Derek Williams, who are working, they do self-portraits, not almost like Cindy Sherman, and they're about putting themselves in these portraitures where they put themselves in different disguises or guises and kind of create a mise en scène to talk about strength, nature, identity, who are we, and so it's a diverse group of artists in the exhibition.
And what it sounds like to me, and thank you for sharing all the other artists, the contributing artists, but also just the way you've curated and the sense that you want people to walk away with, and how they're subjects, but yet they're going to make you feel a certain way that is probably what we're going through on so many levels,
Right.
Politically, socially,
Right.
and so forth. So thank you once again for bringing it here to our viewers on Open, and for you guys, subject does not equal to object. Art will be on display until August 16th at Longwood Art Gallery at Hostos Community College, located at 450 Grand Concourse. And for more information, please visit enfoco.org and or bronxarts.org. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll find out how one Bronx is preserving SISA for the younger generation in the community. Don't go anywhere.